Hey there. When I tell friends that we've been working on a series about how to pay less for prescription drugs, I find myself telling them about a guy named Cole Schmittknecht. In January of last year, Cole went to a Walgreens in Appleton, Wisconsin. He was there to get refills on the medication he used to control his asthma. He'd been taking it for years. He expected to pay about $70. But this is all according to a lawsuit filed by Cole's folks. The pharmacy said his insurance didn't cover his medicine anymore. He was going to have to pay more than $500. And he left without it. A few days later, he had a massive asthma attack, and he died after a few days on life support. He was 22 years old. In their lawsuit, Cole's folks say the pharmacist at Walgreens could have told him right then and there about comparable drugs his insurance would have paid for. And this is the kind of information we all need, we all deserve. You know, in surveys, a quarter of Americans say they've skipped taking meds in the past 12 months because of cost. And maybe we can put a little dent in that. Because there are actually a lot of things to know, a lot of strategies we can try when it looks like our medicine is going to cost an arm and a leg. And over the last few months, you've actually been helping us learn about more of these strategies. And here, we're going to start tying those lessons together. Back in February, we asked you, our listeners, to tell us how you've managed when your prescriptions got really expensive. And we heard back from a lot of you.
We went to go pick up the prescription, and we were like, holy moly, that is so expensive.
We've been given estimates of $30,000 a dose.
The pharmacist would burst out laughing every time I showed up to pick up the prescription.
And you told us what you did next, the strategies you had learned for fighting back and sometimes winning. A lot of those strategies we knew about, and some we were like, whoa, that is a new one on us. I mean, with all of this, there is no guarantee that your particular problem has a good solution. Our whole system sucks. These are patches, workarounds. Cole's dad, he now works full-time trying to change the whole system of how we get charged for meds, which is a must and is going to be a long haul. But in the meantime, these patches, these workarounds, honestly, they really can help a lot of people. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to break down what we've learned into chunks you can digest and share. We're going to take 2 episodes of this show to do it, and we're not expecting you to take out a pen and paper. We're going to share everything in writing in our First Aid Kit newsletter, including stuff that's not going to fit on the podcast. And it's going to take 4 installments of that newsletter. I'm telling you, there's a lot. Meanwhile, we're starting here with one guy's story, a listener named Bob. Bob's journey is going to help us show you, well, the journey, how all the trial and error works, the obstacles, and we'll show you the strategies Bob worked to get through those obstacles, including a tool he developed that we're going to share with you. And I've got some help telling Bob's story. Our producer, Claire Davenport, did most of the reporting for this episode. Hey, Claire.
Hi, Dan.
You're going to tell us Bob's story, and then at some points, we'll zoom out, like tour guides, pointing out the big lessons.
Yes, I'm super excited to get into it.
Yeah, let's go. This is An Arm and a Leg, a show about why healthcare costs so freaking much and what we can maybe do about it. I'm Dan Weissman. I'm a reporter. I like a challenge. So the job we've chosen on this show is to take one of the most enraging, terrifying, depressing parts of American life and bring you something entertaining, empowering, and useful. All right, Claire, where are we going to start with Bob's story?
First, let's meet Bob. He's got a lot going on.
Between me and my wife, we have 5 kids and 3 dogs and 2 cats and 2 lizards.
Did you ever anticipate you'd be a dad to so many?
Nobody plans to have this many kids, Claire. It's no.
I like this guy.
By the way, Bob asked us just to use his first name for privacy reasons. But we checked out his story. He sent us a lot of documents. So Bob's journey here begins in 2019, the first day of high school for his daughter, Mary. After she got home, he wanted to hear how it went, so he called her.
We were talking, and I would say she's being a little spacey, but talking to a 14-year-old on a cell phone, right? And I'll never forget this. We were talking, and all of a sudden she said, the ceiling looks so funny. And then she was sort of gone.
So at first, he assumed Mary had just set the phone down, maybe to talk with one of her sisters.
I text her mom and say, hey, I was talking to our oldest daughter, and she just sort of disappeared. Now she's not answering the phone. Can you go check on her? And I still get even choked up talking about this, but I get a text back in about 2 minutes saying she's unconscious.
They end up calling an ambulance. Bob is scared.
All kinds of thoughts were running through my mind in terms of what could possibly have happened here. Epilepsy was not one of them.
Epilepsy. It's a condition that causes seizures. And Mary was having one while her dad was on the phone with her. Mary and her folks worked with a pediatric neurologist. They started trying out different medications and dosages.
We were told we're going to figure out what the right medications are for her. This is going to be a process.
And it was. It took years of trial and error. They had to experiment with different drug combinations. Finally, they landed on the right mix. That mix included a drug called clobazam.
And that seemed to be the magic bullet.
A magic bullet with a reasonable price tag.
The 3 drugs she was on were well under $100 for all 3 of them together. And she went over a year without a seizure. And then I changed jobs.
Which had an unexpected consequence, as Bob learned when it was time to refill Mary's prescription for clobazam. Bob was used to paying around $15.
This time, the pharmacist comes out and says, hey, your clobazam's going to be $500.
Okay, so, Dan, let's take a step back. Bob changed jobs, and suddenly Mary's clobazam is $500. Because
Bob's new job meant a new insurance plan for the family. And
every insurance plan has its own list of how much you pay for which drugs, and which drugs they don't cover at all. That list is called the formulary.
yeah, that list, that formulary, it's based in part on business deals that plans and drug makers hash out behind closed doors.
So when you change jobs, change insurance, the difference between what's on one formulary and what's on the next, it can be
unpredictable at best. And even if you don't change jobs, your job may change your insurance plan. That happens a lot.
And even if your insurance plan doesn't change, that plan's formulary can change from year to year.
So, Claire, this seems like it's the first big lesson from Bob's story, like the first big obstacle. The deal can change on you. And, maybe in this new deal, your insurance says they were going to offer you another drug that they say is just as good, but it may not be just as good for you. That's a thing.
Yeah, and it was definitely a thing for Bob and his daughter Mary. Remember, they had spent years of trial and error finding the perfect regimen. Just switching to whatever random thing the insurance company approves, that is not on the table. So first, Bob thinks, hey, maybe there was just some kind of mistake here. New insurance company, right? Maybe the pharmacy got confused. So Bob calls his insurance just to ask, and they're like,
oh, well, that medication is only covered for a certain type of epilepsy.
Which isn't the type they think Mary has. They're not going to cover it. So now we've arrived at the point where Bob busts out his first big strategy, haggling with his insurance. They've said no, but that doesn't mean he has to accept this as their final answer.
Yeah, we've heard this from so many people, have heard over the years. This is a whole dance, a whole fight.
Yep, and Bob's going to take us through it. In fact, in this very same phone call where his insurance company said they wouldn't cover Mary's clobazam, they've basically invited him to this dance. They said,
okay, well, there's a prior authorization that can be filled out. We'll send that to your doctor.
There's a prior authorization that can be filled out. We'll send that to your doctor. Like the way Bob recounts the insurance person saying that, it sounds so cheerful, making things sound so easy. But prior authorization.
That's a hurdle, a hoop for Bob and Mary's doctor to jump through.
This will be familiar to a lot of folks already, but prior authorization. Prior.
Before the insurance company will pay for Mary's clobazam.
They have to authorize it.
Her doctor has to make a case that she needs this particular treatment, and the insurance company has to decide the argument is good enough.
We see it all the time.
Yeah, and Bob is not thrilled by this requirement.
Seems unnecessary. This is a, board-certified pediatric neurologist who's been seeing this patient for years.
Yeah, and who took her through a whole trial and error process to find the right meds.
Because of Bob's confidentiality, his insurance company said they couldn't respond directly to his story. Fair enough. But a lot of the time, insurance companies will say, hey, we're just discouraging waste with these prior authorizations. Sometimes doctors will just prescribe an expensive thing when something cheaper would be just as good. Okay. But a lot of patients say, like Bob would, in this case, my doctors and I had already done all this checking.
Bob gets the form sent in, but now he's got another problem. The insurance company needs time to evaluate the prior authorization. And Mary needs her drugs right now.
She starts to panic a little bit of like, hey, I need my medication. If I miss a couple doses, I could have a seizure.
That is a bad problem.
Luckily, Bob found a way to get Mary's clobazam for less than $500 a week. We'll get into that a little later. But for now, just to note, it's lucky he found that workaround. Because when Bob calls to check on the prior authorization, PA for short, well, here's how he says the conversation went.
Oh, yes, we got the PA information. It was denied. It was denied? Why was it denied? Oh, well, again, it looks like that it's only approved for this one particular type of epilepsy.
Which was just what they'd said before. Bob gets ready to appeal. And he says, this is getting to him. When we talked, he mentioned a lesson from the show.
I think you guys recommend this of like not losing your cool with the customer service people and the insurance companies.
I mean, we do. Everybody says it really helps.
And everybody knows it's not actually always possible. Here's what happened the next time Bob calls his insurance.
They asked me, oh, how's your daughter doing? I just remember saying, like, she's terrified. She's going to be walking to class and have a seizure because she doesn't have the medication. And so don't give me this BS about how's my daughter doing.
Bob seems like a pretty level-headed guy. And also, we've kind of withheld this until now, but Claire, you told me Bob actually works in healthcare. So he knows a little more about this world than most of us do. Insurance, appeals. He's got this advantage in terms of keeping his cool of not being in totally foreign terrain.
Yep. And he says he recovered his cool pretty quickly.
I pulled back when I realized what I was doing. Like, this isn't this person's fault. They're just probably reading a script.
But this is kind of the lesson here. No matter what kind of advantages you have, this stuff is so frustrating. Anybody can lose their cool. The key, and maybe we should do a whole show about this, is recovering. Because you're going to have to get up and go again.
Yeah, and we're just getting to the most frustrating part.
Right.
After more than a month and 2 rounds of appeals, Bob says Mary's clobazam finally gets approved.
And this is the frustrating part because
insurance will cover it now, but they tell him his share is going to be $150. Remember, Bob said under his old insurance, it used to only cost $15.
So 10 times the price now, plus the price, of the other medication she's on.
Yeah, all this waiting, all this fighting, everything, and it's still 10 times more than he used to pay under his old insurance.
It's less bad. This insurance was originally going to make him pay more than $500. But yeah, not great.
But Claire, this is not the end of Bob's story, right?
Not even close.
What this sparked us to do is to look at, okay, well, what are the other options? If it's not going to get approved, what are the other options?
We'll get into those options after the break.
This episode of An Arm and a Leg is produced in partnership with KFF Health News. That's a nonprofit newsroom covering healthcare in America. The reporters win all kinds of awards every year. We're honored to work with them. So, Bob has worked the strategy of haggling with his insurance, and he won. Kind of. except that winning still leaves him paying 10 times more than he used to.
Yeah, and now he's going to work a whole different strategy, ignoring his insurance, because there can be better deals elsewhere. Bob starts with GoodRx.
Lots of people know GoodRx. It's a website where you tell them what drug you need, and they'll show you deals, discounts at local pharmacies, which does not always work. Like saving 50% on a $1,000 drug does not make it affordable. I know people who get mad when you mention it.
Yeah, Bob says he got mad because of who recommended it to him. A rep from his insurance company.
Like, you're my insurance company. That's what I pay you for.
Right. I mean, he pays them premiums so he can pay less for healthcare, including medicine. But he didn't write it off. And he says now it was actually useful. Even though he knew about GoodRx before, he wouldn't have thought to go there.
It was sort of one of those things, like and this is going to sound crazy, but I almost thought of GoodRx as like Medicaid. I think I thought of it as like, oh, well, that's what you use if you don't have insurance.
Interesting. Like, in one sense, it wasn't wrong. Like, when you use a GoodRx discount, you can't use your insurance too. But it turns out, even when you have insurance, GoodRx can be worth looking at.
Yes, and here's what makes Bob's story stand out. The reason we wanted to really dig in. It's what he did next. Because he didn't just look at GoodRx. He started exploring a whole world of options. Actually, worlds. One is the world of sites like GoodRx.
Yeah, I'm Googling sites like GoodRx. Here's Single Care, RX Saver, Buzz RX.
Yep, and for any given drug, each of these sites may show you different prices. So now that he was looking at this world, he started mapping it out.
I created this spreadsheet that had each of those options, the different medications, and then the different pharmacies, and where we could kind of get the best price for things.
And once Bob started looking at this outside insurance world, he started exploring others, like cost-plus drugs.
And what was really sort of eye-opening to me is they did so much better than our insurance company did.
We should really talk about Mark Cuban cost-plus drugs. To use his full name, it's pretty different.
Right. The celebrity owner.
Mark Cuban, basically famous for being rich. Like, he owns the Dallas Mavericks basketball team.
And he spent 15 years on the reality show Shark Tank.
It's like American Idol for startups. Like, people pitch their businesses to investors who might offer to buy in on camera.
But Mark Cuban has just made the largest offer in Shark Tank history.
Let me ask you a question. If I offered you $30 million for the company, would you take it?
Yeah, all of that. But the celebrity factor isn't really what makes Cost Plus different. The company buys meds direct from manufacturers and adds 15% to their wholesale cost.
Plus shipping fees and $5 for pharmacy labor.
Bob added Cost Plus to his spreadsheet, and he liked what he saw.
It's very transparent and super low cost.
He asked Mary's doctor to transfer 2 of her prescriptions.
But not all of them. Cost Plus doesn't carry everything. For one thing, they mostly only carry generic drugs.
And what matters in Bob's case, they don't carry controlled substances. Nobody sells them online because it's illegal to ship them. And Mary's clobazam, it's a type of controlled substance. They're called benzos.
Like Valium and Xanax.
Yeah, so for clobazam, the best price he can find is $85 using GoodRx at Walmart.
Which is a lot less than his insurance was going to have him pay. So go spreadsheet. Head to Walmart, use GoodRx there.
Just one thing. Mary's off at college now, and there's no Walmart right nearby. And Mary doesn't drive.
She has epilepsy. She can't have a driver's license. So it's she can't drive anywhere, right? We had a Walmart near our house at home. I'm 2.5 hours away from her.
And he says he made the drive.
Dad of the decade. For all of this, Bob fought down the insurance companies, he shopped around, he made the spreadsheets, and he made a bunch of round trips to his daughter's college.
Yeah, Bob rules. But he's not exactly happy about all of it.
I pay an insurance company every month out of my paycheck for prescription drug benefit that I don't feel like I get, right? Like I'm having to go outside of that in order to get the medications that are nothing special. Like clobazam has been on the market since like the 70s.
Yeah, fair.
But he may be game to take the win on that Dad of the Decade award.
I would say I did a magnificent job of, staying calm and hiding that stress from Mary.
I assumed he was going to figure it out.
Total confidence in me, right?
I did. I did, right?
That's Mary?
That's her.
Okay, so let's review these lessons. Yes, you can fight your insurance, but you may get a better deal going outside of it. All of which sucks. This was a lot of work and not a total victory. But it's better than not knowing any of this.
Yes. And this story ends up going full circle, back to the first lesson. The deal can change on you, for worse or for better. Bob changed jobs again recently, so new insurance. And actually, it's good this time. Under Bob's new insurance, Mary's clobazam is back to $15, which she learned recently when she went to go pick it up.
I was like, this is amazing. Definitely a weight lifted off my chest when I saw a 2-digit number.
And speaking of how the deal can change on you, this reminds me. We went looking at GoodRx recently and saw a new price for Mary's clobazam there, too.
Yes. The lowest price on GoodRx is now $30 at a CVS she can walk to. I showed the current GoodRx prices to Bob and Mary, and what struck Mary at first was this: how different the prices at different pharmacies were. GoodRx said CVS had clobazam for $30, but
It said Walgreens was like over $300. It was like $300, and then everything else is between $25 and $35, maybe $40. But I don't understand that.
I know! Man, I had this exact experience a few years ago, and I was like, why are these prices so different at different places? And I ended up learning about companies called pharmacy benefit managers, PBMs. These are the people who actually decide which drugs our insurance covers, how much we pay for them. We did a whole episode about them. I learned so...
We are not going to get into it here.
Yeah.
But we'll leave a link in the show notes in case people want to nerd out. Because today we're just looking at how to get things to work better for you. So, Mary was curious about the $300 Walgreens price from GoodRx. And by the way, she's also furious with the whole system. But here's one thing she was filing away. She could now use GoodRx to get clobazam for $30 at CVS.
It was not like that a couple years ago. And it is reassuring to know, like, if I show up and it's, $150, there are places that would have a price I could actually afford.
Now let's take that glass half full and add a little bit to it. Because in addition to their story, Bob gave us one more thing, his spreadsheet. And we've been adding to it.
Yep. We got a template you can download. It's in the show notes for this episode, and it's in our first aid kit newsletter. And in addition to GoodRx and some similar sites and Cost Plus, we're adding lines where you can log prices from a world Bob didn't explore.
I mean, he's just one guy.
So one thing we're adding, ordering from pharmacies outside the US. Drug prices are lower basically everywhere else, and some pharmacies in Canada will ship to the US. To avoid shady internet stuff, a tool called Pharmacy Checker will steer you to ones that are above board.
Another addition, manufacturer coupons. Sometimes, especially with brand name drugs, pharma companies offer coupons that can make drugs more affordable.
Yeah, and there's a lot of caveats with those too.
Oh man, tell me about it. But not right now. There are too many possible workarounds and too many caveats for any one person to keep in mind. That's why we are doing this project across 2 episodes of the podcast and 4 installments of our first aid kit newsletter. I mean, it's all exhausting, and there's no guarantees, but it's all worth knowing. And with help from Bob and a lot of listeners who chimed in, we are boiling things down and putting them in forms we hope you will find useful. As always, definitely please let us know how the stuff we provide can be even better. You can find the First Aid Kit newsletter at armandalegshow.com/firstaidkit. New installments there every week. We're going to have a link wherever you're listening to this. And in our next episode, we'll dive into some tips that really surprised us from folks who do this kind of thing for a living.
I guess in my heart of hearts, I want everybody to be taken care of.
For now, Claire, thank you so much for bringing us Bob's story.
My pleasure.
And we'll be back with that second episode in this series in a few weeks. Till then, take care of yourself. This episode of An Arm and a Leg was produced by Claire Davenport with help from me, Dan Weissman, and Emily Pisacreta, and our new intern. Welcome, Lauren Gould. This episode was edited by Ellen Weiss. Adam Raimunda is our audio wizard. Our music is by Dave Weiner and Blue Dot Sessions. B. Bosco is our consulting director of operations. Lynn Johnson is our operations manager. An Arm and a Leg is produced in partnership with KFF Health News. That's a national newsroom producing in-depth journalism about health issues in America and a core program at KFF, an independent source of health policy research, polling, and journalism. Zach Dyer is senior audio producer at KFF Health News. He's editorial liaison to this show. An Arm and a Leg is distributed by KUOW, Seattle's NPR station. Thank you to the Institute for Nonprofit News for serving as our fiscal sponsor. They allow us to accept tax-exempt donations. You can learn more about INN at inn.org. Finally, thank you to everybody who supports this show financially. You can join in anytime at armandalegshow.com/support. Thank you. And thanks for listening.